Yeah. So, well, as you mentioned, I've now worked with a lot of different clients all over the world. And what we really see is that, um, especially if you start to scale up journey management, it becomes ever more important to, yeah, standardize the way of working. That, of course, is, I think, one of the main, yeah, unique benefits of working with TheyDo is that it really allows you to work in the same way, even if you have multiple teams that are maybe even spread across different departments, or maybe even different operations across the world. And of course, you want those teams to be able to understand each other and to learn from each other and to maybe look up. Like from my own experience, I was working at a big bank one time, and took me like a few weeks at least to gather all the journeys that I needed to have as input for my own project, and to even understand like what have all these people done. Even like an expert, like I've made a lot of journeys, and even it took me a lot of time to actually realize like, hey, what type of lanes or what type of insights have those other teams actually mapped here. So that's just like a very anecdotal like thing that I experienced, where it would have been great to just know like, hey, everyone in this company makes journeys this way. So if you've seen one journey, you've seen all of them. At least you can understand all of them. So I think that's one of the main benefits of creating journey templates. And of course, if you have them, it also helps you to get started faster, because when you start mapping a journey, you don't have to think all over again of like what insights should I map, or like what type of structure should my journey have. But you can just start from a template and start mapping right away. And that, of course, in the end also leads to consistency. It just leads that, yeah, all the journeys that you create have the same build up. And of course, it's not like something that you have to enforce or be very strict about. I also believe that, journey templates are a starting point. And of course, when you start working with them, you can always add extra lanes if you think it's relevant for you, or like the specific type of thing that you want to show. But at least it's good to start from the same point and have those things consistent throughout all of the journeys that you create across your organization.
And have you seen many organizations like figure this out on their own? Like, hey, okay, so if we're all going to be like journey led and figure out projects and priorities around journeys, like we should better also standardize this. Are those the questions they come
Oh
to
yeah.
you with? Is that something they've thought of? And can you give some examples of where people start with the thinking around this?
Yeah, I mean, I think many customers of ours, right, one of their main things is they want to standardize. And so yeah, I've had many customers that have created journey templates pretty much the first thing, um, even before starting to think about frameworks or whatever. Like really from the first moment, that was one of the first things they did, to create a shared journey template. And it makes sense because once you start mapping journeys, yeah, the earlier you start with a journey template, the better, because then yeah, for sure everyone will have started the same way. It's much harder to go back to all the teams that created journeys afterwards and ask them to like, yeah, transform their journeys into the standard template afterwards. So yeah, the earlier you do it, the better, I'd say.
And as the practice evolves, I mean, mapping is one thing, but managing at scale is another. I know for a fact that when you start thinking about like what would be like the best structure to have different kinds of journey templates that people can work with, then you discover, cross-functional teamwork is done differently than we actually thought at the first step. Like, I know we're going to touch base on working with templates, but is there like some patterns that you recognize organizations go through? And then I think we can segue nicely into like figure out like, okay, so how do you create a template, go into data a little bit, but like, can you speak to how the first idea of, hey, we need a standardized way of templating our workflows and standardize that, to how that evolves over time? Is that the same, different? Like what kind of decision that all people run into?
Maybe you can answer your own question there. Like, I think you might have an idea for an answer already, perhaps.
Yeah, I see. Like you want to think with the end in mind, but like even starting with a basic customer journey can also be hard. Like people think like, oh, okay, so but I have different insights, like you mentioned earlier. Like I do research where I talk to people, and someone else is like collecting only insights from, let's say, their ticketing system for their customer support chat. Those are all insights, and how do you build them out in your journeys, but also make that work consistent. That is what I see is hard. And sometimes I see like make templates as simple as you can go and then add like new things to it and allow people to do that. I've also seen companies, and I think some of them are here today, maybe we can hear from them, where they say like, no, we actually have a very, very fixed set of how we create journeys. We even lock that content in, so people have to fill that in for a journey to be accepted, basically, in our model. So I don't know. I think both work, but I haven't seen one. So I think that's the answer there. Can you relate to that?
Yeah, I can actually. What's interesting, yesterday I was talking to a client, and they said like, hey, we also want to have our marketing team, create marketing funnels in TheyDo, but we're not sure if we should create a separate template for them that they can work in, or if we should train them to use the more service design or UX type of way to make journeys. What do you recommend, right? And I told them like, well, in the end, of course, the main goal should be to have one source of truth. So you always end up with the same journeys. And that's where all the different teams, even if it's different expertises, like you want to even share one source of truth. But also there should, of course, be a transition towards that point. And I told them like, for the time being, maybe just give them their own marketing funnel template. They can get started with that as long as they map the journeys that they make with that at the right point in the framework. You'll always be able to merge things later again, especially because TheyDo, of course, allows stuff like opportunities that all the opportunities, the solutions, and perhaps later also all the insights that you create get logged into repositories. So once they're in there, you can also map them to all of your service design journeys or all the other types of journeys that you might have. So as long as you use a template that people can use to input all the data that they gather, or the solutions or the opportunities, you can always link those things to all the other journeys again later. So as long as you give them something that they understand to get started, which journey templates are, of course, it's always a good thing to do that.